SCI Guys, the show where we talk about the crazy, weird, and wonderful stories from the science world. I'm Corey, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jamp and Luke Cutforth, but this time live at VidCon! Yes! This week, we'll be talking about blind minds and blank brains.
That's me.
Right. Me on the podcast, yeah.
I am blank brain.
Blank brain.
That's how I feel every week recording this podcast.
So, over the past few weeks, you may have seen a picture of some 5-point stars floating around Twitter and other parts of the internet. This has led many people to realize that they're part of the minority of people that can't picture things in their mind. This is this is a condition known as aphantasia. Exactly.
Yeah. Have you guys seen this? So, okay, has anyone not seen it? Okay, so basically, there's this video that's kind of floating around the internet that's like, picture an apple. So will you do this now? Close your eyes, and I'll say, picture an apple. Sorry, Corey, if this was what you were going to do.
I was actually going to do it. Hold up. Why don't we do it? So we did this with a bunch of YouTubers the other day. So I'll do the same one with you guys. I want you all to close your eyes now. Okay, now, picture a ball on a table.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this at home, also do this now.
Follow along.
Yeah, unless you're driving, in which case don't do that. Pull over to a safe place, stop. Now close your eyes. Picture a ball on a table. Now what I want you to do is push that ball off of the table. Now open your eyes. What color was the ball? And what was the table made out of? If you can't tell what it was, you probably have aphantasia.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what it was.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, no, I have no idea what color the ball is and what
It was
the
a
table's
white
made
ball,
from.
but apart beyond that.
Can anybody here actually see something in their mind's eye? Hands up. Oh, most of you.
Cheer if you can do it. Cheer if you can see with your yeah. Wow. Okay,
See,
so we're just weirdos then.
weird, okay.
So I was telling my
Good to
mum
know.
about this, and I have a different one. Basically, I can't see anything in my mind's eye. Like, it's just blank. I see the concept of a ball or the concept of an apple. But I can perfectly recreate the Harry Potter theme tune in my head with all the little other instruments.
Oh, yeah.
Like, sound-wise, I have perfect visualization, sound visualization, whatever you call that. But visually, I can't see anything.
I can't do anything with sound, but I'm the same as you. So with stuff in my head, I can't see it. I just know every single aspect of it without. It's really difficult to describe because you can't usually describe visuals of something without seeing it. In this case, I know every visual thing about an object, just can't see it at all.
Just can't see it.
I just know it
All
exists.
I saw was a circle. Just a white circle. And
So
then
you're
there was
like
no
level
table.
1 or 2?
Maybe level 1 or 2, because I could see the shape of the ball. Couldn't see a table. But just the colour and the shape.
So do you actually see it with your eyes closed?
Yeah.
Wow, that is...
Yeah, so in like the Twitter meme that's been going around, basically there's like 1 to 5, like 5, I think, being that you can see a perfectly shaded, beautiful apple or ball or whatever, as if it's actually in front of you, and 0 or 1 being that you can't see anything at all, like me.
Yeah, so Luke and I are on one end of the scale, and I think you're a little bit higher up.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but most people tend to be on the higher end, able to see pretty much everything with their eyes closed. So
That's so weird.
it's really weird. When you find out about this,
It's like a foreign concept to
It's like
me.
finding out that everyone else is seeing like another color. I can't imagine another color. How are you guys seeing that? It's very frustrating. And on that, actually, some women can see about...
Oh, dangerous start to a sentence for a man.
Some women can see about 1 million more colors than everyone else.
What?
Yeah, they've got an extra. I think they've got an extra cone in their eye, maybe a rod or a cone, one of the two.
Wait. I need to
We've got a microphone right here.
I'm a biomedical science student, so I'm going to cover this.
We have a specialist in the room, everyone.
You're more qualified than us.
So it's basically you have sex-linked difficulties. So men have an X and a Y chromosome, and usually women have 2 X chromosomes. So if there's an issue with one of them, then the other one will cover for it. But with men, because they only have 1 X chromosome, the Y chromosome pretty much does nothing. So there's nothing to cover for it.
Just like men.
So like it's more likely, says that a lot of like colour blindness is probably the most common one that we get told in sort of uni, that men are more likely to have it because you don't have the extra X chromosome to cover for the genetic difficulty.
Yeah, so you've got women have got a backup effectively, whereas men. You good? Maybe we should get a runner in, or do you want to keep on doing
No,
it?
it's fine.
I need the exercise,
have a
Corey.
That's what you're here for, Luke.
I got to hit my 30 minutes on my Apple Watch, so make me run around.
Yeah, so effectively, women have a backup, and men they're just flying blind. They're flying blind, quite literally. So some women can see a lot more colors than men, which is irritating because
I want to see them.
I want to see those colors.
I
Yeah,
want to see those colors.
Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see colors that I don't see in the real world.
This is the stuff he comes out with every single week when we record.
We had to live with Luke for about a year. This is. He comes out with this on the daily. Like, I can see colors when I close my eyes, but not colors that I can see in the real world.
No, like I sometimes see like in my eye, in my mind's eye. Although I can't picture anything, I sometimes see like colors or like patterns, and they look like they're kind of like between the color red and green, but they're not a color that I've seen in the real world. They're like simultaneously red and green at the same time. I know I sound like a total crazy person.
Yeah,
Quite often.
But like I see colors that like, especially if I've like looked at the sun, for example, and then closed my eyes.
I think
The color that I
there we go. That's it. I think we found the root cause of the color of the sun. Just going blind.
no, like when I then close my eyes, like the color is like somehow at the same time both blue and purple, for example.
Blurple.
Blurple.
Yes.
Okay, shall we move on?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to
please.
hear about aphantasia?
Yes.
Yes.
So we've known about the existence of people with no mind's eye for more than a century now. So in 1880, or 114 BL,
BL
Shall we
is a
explain
niche
BL?
reference.
Yeah. Okay, BL is our frame of reference for years because nothing existed before Luke.
Yeah.
Therefore, we measure the start of time from the day of Luke, well, not the day of Luke's birth, the year of Luke's birth.
Yes.
So
Yes.
BL is before Luke. So 114 years before Luke, Francis Galton conducted an experiment. He was a British naturalist, and he asked 100 adult men to talk about their breakfast table, effectively. And then he asked them to rate the lighting, sharpness, and coloring of the table and the objects on it. Bear in mind, they weren't looking at the actual table; they were just imagining it. So he got all of this, and some people found it really easy. In fact, Charles Darwin, who you may have heard of. Give us a cheer if you've heard of Charles Darwin.
I'm familiar.
Easy
We
cheers.
stand.
Easy cheers. Charles Darwin was his cousin, and so he tested him. And apparently Charles Darwin said, and I quote, "The scene was as distinct as if I had photos before me." So Charles Darwin, he could see everything with his mind's eye.
Weird.
Yeah. Apparently, 12 people of those 100 couldn't see anything at all. Yeah.
Me.
This is
I can
not
see
a good representation. Yeah. No. So 12 people of those 100 couldn't see anything at all, and they didn't realize up until that point that mental imagery was meant literally.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
for example, there are people in the world who have no. I'm going to try and say this without sounding like I'm crazy again. Like no internal monologue. So no. Their brain isn't telling them anything about the world. They're just perceiving the sensory data and not projecting anything on top of that. If that sounds like a crazy thing, it may be that you've not noticed that you project meaning and stories on top of the world to a certain extent. Like your brain uses past experience to project into the future and sort of like try and work out the meaning of things, right? And there are some people in the world who just have none of that and never have. The part of their brain that does that just doesn't. It's called the internal narrator or the narrating mind, and it's in the left hemisphere of the brain. And some people just don't have it at all.
Now,
Lucky
judging
them.
by Corey's face, I think you've just spoiled the second
Have
half
I
of the
ruined-
episode.
This is my favorite part of the episode, wherein Luke talks about something that I've saved for later. So, thank you,
every
Luke.
How
week.
about we just pretend I didn't say that, and you can say the whole thing again, and we'll give you a big clap.
No, we'll just shave 10 minutes off the podcast, and in those 10 minutes, we can all just go in a line and give Luke a little slap for ruining it.
So does that mean that in some way this internal narrator and the visualization section of the brain are in some way linked? Is this where you're going?
Okay, so kind of. I just wanted to talk about it. So one of our friends tweeted recently, saying that she didn't think in words at all. She thought in kind of memories and pictures and images and feelings. But she also could picture things incredibly vividly, as though she was watching them. And I realized I am the exact opposite of that. Like I can still think of things without words, but ultimately there's a constant internal monologue in my head that's just running at all times. It's like narration, but more annoying.
Does it say full sentences?
It says full sentences, and also Have you seen this? There's an episode of BoJack Horseman where it just runs his internal monologue, and it's kind of like that. Sometimes it says things about anxiety. It's like, you look stupid. Maybe you shouldn't be saying this right now. Get off that stage. I'm like, okay, be quiet, please, sir.
Oh God, that's terrifying. I think in dot points. Which makes me,
That makes so much sense.
Makes me sound like a Neanderthal, but I'm just like, hungry, get food.
That's not thinking in dot points. That's like the stage 4 in the internal monologue. That's
Right.
like that's you're one up from Corey. That's better. You're thinking in concepts rather than full sentences.
Okay, good.
So like Corey thinks
Good
in
food.
the actual sentence. I think I might go to the toilet, rather than thinking the act of going to the toilet. He's like
Yeah.
the long way round.
See, that's the thing. I do both.
You do.
I do.
Doo-doo.
I do.
why you go to
That's
the
what I think
toilet.
when I go to the toilet. I do. Yeah. No, I do both. I think thinking is so complicated.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's something to think about, really.
Yeah.
Such an effort.
That, by the way, Corey, if anyone saw a video I posted on YouTube recently called I Went Psychotic, But I'm Back Now. That process, after I kind of became sane again, what I found was my little narrator in my head that used to tell me things like Corey's does or James's does, mine just kind of doesn't exist anymore. It's quite lovely. He kind of died. I don't know where he's gone, but he comes back when I'm like really anxious or really like nervous or like hurt by something, but most of the time I don't have anyone in my head anymore, which is lovely. And again, I know that sounds crazy. You all probably have someone in your head, you just don't realize it. If you think I sound like a crazy person.
I think we did a whole episode on this, so
Yeah.
go back and listen to that one if you're interested. So I'll carry on with Aphantasia. So I have scrolled past where I should have done in my notes. This is a live show. That's what happens. So today there is a standard way to probe the mind's eye effectively. It's called the Vividness of Visual Imagery Questionnaire. And I'm going to call it VVIC because that sounds fun. So basically, this it's kind of a survey, and it shows that most people have got fairly vivid mental imagery, and only 2 to 3% report a completely image-free mind.
Wow.
So
We're rare.
yeah, we're
Oh,
special.
like
so
being
you're
ginger.
Yeah, you're ginger, and
And I don't have a mind's
You're
eye.
especially rare.
mind-eye blind.
And I can fully picture the entire Harry Potter soundtrack. Incredible.
I reckon you're one of a kind.
You can also do this thing, not just the Harry Potter soundtrack. If you give Luke effectively like a Harry Potter quote,
Yeah.
he generally can just
Figure
finish the
out
quote.
where it is. Yeah, I mean, not every time, but like I basically grew up listening to all the Harry Potter audiobooks every night before bed. And like apparently like what forms the basis of your subconscious mind, a lot of it is like the stuff you think about or do 5 minutes before you fall asleep. And for
Yeah.
me, that was Stephen Fry reading me Harry Potter. So like it doesn't work all the time. And Corey tested it once on me on the podcast and I failed miserably. But
Yeah.
like I have pretty good ability to like know where any sentence in the Harry Potter books are. Kind of weird.
And what comes after it? Like
Yeah.
the next sentence.
That's really interesting because I've just realized now the reason I've got that, I've got this encyclopedic knowledge of The Simpsons, which is why if you listen back to every episode of the podcast, there's a Simpsons reference in there that I don't tell anyone
That we
about.
don't pick up on.
Is there one in this episode?
There might be. Who knows? We'll find out soon. Yeah, so effectively, I used to go to sleep watching The Simpsons, so now I can recall every single episode and which season it's in and what the name of it is.
It is weird.
It's really fun. Like,
Really strange.
if I hear an episode from another room, sometimes I'll just, like, when I was living at home, I'd text my dad and say, that's what episode's playing. From 2 seconds of audio. Weirded him out. He didn't like it.
I don't like it.
So, as I was saying, you've got the VVIC, which is the Vividness of Visual Imagery Questionnaire. It basically asks people to imagine various scenes and rate the clarity of the mental picture. It's kind of what I did with you guys earlier on when I asked you to close your eyes and picture the ball. That's actually one of the questions that I've taken from the questionnaire. So as I said, most people have vivid mental imagery, and there's kind of a scale from sort of aphantasia of not being able to see anything to super vivid. So there's hyperphantasia and hypophantasia. Hyper being really, really vivid images, and hypo being probably closer to what Luke and I have, and probably closer to what James has as well, of not really being able to see images, but still having some kind of
Yeah.
visual concept in their head. So how this works is effectively when you see a real object, the information, your eyes capture it, the visual information, and they send it to your brain, and your brain activates a pattern of neurons, which is unique to that object. So when you look at a chair, your brain lights up and says, chair. And when you look at, like, Luke, your brain lights up and says, Luke. And those are two completely different things. So if you were to look at a brain scan, you could tell, Corey's looking at chair and Corey's looking at Luke. You got that? That was a lot of information in one go.
Yeah.
It's nice that there's a little bit of me inside your brain. I just live in there. Hello.
I want to get my brain removed now. Jab, I see it's working quite well for you.
What? What are you on about?
I'm sorry. Yeah, so effectively, the MRI brain scan show that if you imagine a picture of an object, the same neural pattern lights up. So it's not just seeing an object, imagining it, your brain's like, I'm going to light up in the same way. So there's a man called Adam Zaman. Let's call him Adam Zaman.
Adam's a man.
Yeah, Adam Zaman. So Adam Zaman says, he's from... Adam Zaman from the University of Exeter says, picturing an image in your mind's eye is like running the system from the top down rather than from the bottom up.
Yes.
Oh.
So like you rather than the visual cortex triggering the memory is triggering the visual cortex. Something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Used a lot of big words there, man. I'm going to give it to you, and we're just going to keep on
There
going.
was one
10
big
points.
word, cortex. Memory and
6
visual.
letters.
Visual is bigger.
All right.
So basically, for a long time, no one really cared about this. No one thought about it, and no one was studying it. Since effectively the 1800s, it was just kind of left until one man changed all of that.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so this man was, we'll call him MX. He was 65
Why?
years
Is he a spy? Why can't we know his name?
because he was a subject of studies. You've got to yeah.
MX.
Let a man finish. So we'll call this man MX. He was 65 years old, and he was a building surveyor. And apparently, after having some heart surgery, he lost the ability to visualize stuff in his brain, which is really annoying.
Heart surgery?
Yeah, heart surgery. Oh, so apparently he would have suffered like a mini stroke.
Right. Oh, okay. That
Yeah.
makes more sense.
It would be really annoying though to wake up after heart surgery and just not be able to imagine stuff anymore. Because you wouldn't think
Yeah.
that would be affected by your heart, would
By
you?
your heart, yeah. That's
Yeah.
why I was confused.
Side note, did you see that weird video on Twitter of the lady who was having brain surgery and she played the violin throughout the
violin.
entire surgery
Yeah.
so that they could check that they didn't damage her fine motor control?
Yeah.
I don't like that people are awake during brain surgery. You
Yeah.
should be asleep during surgery.
never
I
have to
don't
have brain
care how
surgery.
bad it is.
My granny had surgery on her eye and was awake throughout the whole thing and saw
Absolutely not.
from the eye, like just them moving the eye around.
That's the worst. So I had like a removal of of a mole on my shoulder, and it was just local anesthetic. So I was awake the whole time. But the glasses that I was wearing at the time, they were quite big, so I could see the reflection of my shoulder, and I watched them just cut into me without being able to feel it. And it was the most surreal experience of my life, just lying there, watching my body be just hacked to pieces. And then, well, yeah, but the anesthetic seemed to start to wear off because I could really feel them tugging at that, and I was like, man, this must be hard to get through because I can feel you ripping and tearing. Like,
I've become a horror podcast all of a sudden.
yeah, what is this? What is it about? Is it science?
I think it's
I don't
science.
know.
Those
Science?
are horror stories.
Yeah.
Maybe we should branch out. Okay, so as I was saying, MX, he was a 65-year-old building surveyor, and he lost the ability to imagine. So what they did was they studied his brain. They showed him pictures of Tony Blair, who was the prime minister at the time. And I realized that some people in the room probably don't remember who Tony Blair is, which is odd.
Tony Blair was the prime minister for 10 years who then started the Iraq War with George Bush. Yeah. He was
Yeah.
doing quite well until that.
Anyway,
Yeah. I mean, you know, that is one thing that often sticks out in your mind. If you start the Iraq War, that's something that people
something
really
you're
see.
going to remember you by, yeah.
Interestingly, that is called the peak end rule. And people's memory, I'll bring some science for once. People remember things based on the worst thing and the end thing, rather than like the actual full experience. And so, yeah, if you think of Tony Blair and you just think about how, well, for us with Tony Blair, the end and the peak were the same thing. They were both the Iraq War. So that's all we remember about Tony Blair.
So that's why in this podcast, when we get to a really good point, instead of ending, we're just going to walk off stage and leave you all in a high. MX was a building surveyor, as I've tried to say multiple times, and they were studying him. They put him in an MRI scanner and showed him pictures of Tony Blair. And then they put him in and tried to get him to answer questions about what Tony Blair looked like. They said, like, does he have big ears? Does he have funny-looking teeth? And
Did he start the Iraq War?
that's not really something one can read on a man's face.
He looks like he'd start the Iraq War.
Really looks like the type. So they asked him questions like that. And what they noticed was that actually different parts of his brain were lighting up. So he couldn't visually remember in the same way that he was able to see, but different parts of his brain were working to figure out those questions. Like problem-solving parts of his brain were lighting up. So instead of, like, as I said, just seeing it, he just figured it out. Which means brains are incredible. Like, you can take out a function and they're like, okay, cool, I'll just do it a different way then. So, they did some more tests. This was in about 2003 that they started. They published it in around 2010. And at that point, people started writing in because they realized that, they had this condition too where they can't see anything, and they just thought that everyone was like that. So that led to more studies being done. In fact, 21 people wrote in and responded to Zaman.
Can't take it seriously.
And they answered Zaman's questionnaire. And then Zaman published another...
This is so immature.
We're a very highbrow podcast here.
Yes.
Zaman published another... Come on, man. So he published... Dear God. He published some more studies based on that in 2015. And that's when it really started to kind of explode. So they were also doing other tests. Effectively, what they would do is they would show you a weird kind of shape. It's like... did you ever have those things in math class that were like the little blocks and you could build them into different shapes?
No.
Is this a reference that no one gets?
Blocks in maths.
Yeah? Give us a cheer if you've had those. I can't. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So they basically built like odd shapes out of those, odd three-dimensional shapes. And then what they did was they rotated them. And they had him try and figure out which objects related to which rotated object, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I did this. I did a Mensa test once, and this was one of the tests was like 3D rotation in your mind.
Oh yeah, so yeah, okay, that's exactly. So 3D rotation is effectively what they asked him to do, and he could do it. It was just not in the same way as anyone else. So ultimately, there was a certain pattern with people that could visualize things. Based on different properties of the shapes, they would take shorter or longer to figure it out, and that you could kind of notice the same trends across multiple people. But this man was just quite different. It didn't seem to be based on anything to do with visualizing it in his brain, and in fact, he was again just problem solving and figuring out which shape related to which with his brain, because brains can do that. So
clever.
Yeah, he is just clever. So it was actually the degree of rotation. So basically, how much it was rotated. If it was rotated more, it was more difficult for people who visualize it. Whereas for him, didn't make a difference because it was difficult for him to figure out anyway. Yeah. So a lot of people would find it really difficult to describe in words how they couldn't visualize stuff. And actually, if you think about it, it is something that would be really difficult to describe because. Imagine describing an experience that you just take for granted, like your thought pattern. Imagine trying to just describe thinking. It's really difficult because it's your whole life. It's your whole kind of, it's your whole view of the world. So it's
kind of who you are, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's describing your entire experience, and you don't have anything to compare it against. So you don't know where it's different from someone else.
Yeah.
So I don't know, for instance, what Luke is seeing right now and how he's thinking. So I can't compare.
Well, I was actually thinking about the Harry Potter theme tune, I'll be honest. I was playing it in my head because I'm like...
Look, we've
I
got
can hear every flute.
We've got about 15 minutes left, so if you play that in 15 minutes...
Ah, okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Dear God. I've lost where I was now. Does anyone remember?
I know exactly where I am in the Harry Potter theme tune.
Well, it would be
any
lovely if we had a Harry Potter theme tune podcast, but unfortunately, we have to get this crummy science one over
a
first.
side podcast.
No. Okay, so some other people started doing studies after Zeman's was published. There was actually a man called...
Zeman.
Another man?
Yeah, so
Zeman.
along with
Zeman.
Zeman, you're going to laugh at this name. There was a man called Jonas Schlatter.
No, it's a
fun.
respectable name.
Really?
Yeah.
Schlatter. It sounds
It
silly.
doesn't sound like you're saying the man in an Eastern European accent, so it's not fun.
Okay, fine. So Schlatter was from Berlin, and
It's like I'm watching.
it's a slow burn.
It's like I'm watching Killing Eve. Where's the man?
Schlatter also didn't realize that he couldn't visualize things, and it was Zeman's studies that made him realize. So he then went on to try and do his own studies. Apparently, he says, like a lot of people from Galton's 1800s original experiments, he just thought that fading memories or let me paint you a picture was just a turn of phrase. It didn't actually represent how people saw the world. And then, so he got into a conversation with someone effectively about how it could be that someone can simultaneously see something and also visualize it in their brain. And he was like, this is a dumb, boring conversation. You can't visualize anything in your brain. You can only see stuff. And then he realized, oh no, I'm just different.
I'm just
from the
weird.
rest
It's
of the
like when
world.
you say something and you think that that's the way the world is, and everyone's like,
What?
No, you're weird.
Like, you know when you wake up and you've always got a sore leg, and then you realize, oh no, my leg's just broken. Like, it's like that. Like,
Yeah.
well, not broken.
Weird
but, you know,
analogy, but it works.
I don't know.
I don't think anybody's ever like gone through life with a sore leg and been like, everyone else's
wait,
left
no.
leg is
Damn, does your
always
leg
sore,
not hurt?
right?
No, hold on. I just remembered what my brain was trying to think, and then it went to the leg because I saw your leg. It was my eyes. It was like, so when I've got glasses.
Sorry, I can't
What?
follow this
Okay,
conversation
right. Okay,
at
no,
all.
let me start from the
Oh,
start.
like having glasses
so
on.
I have
Right.
glasses. I can't see anything without these. But growing up, I had no idea that I was different. I was like, oh yeah, you're not supposed to be able to see the leaves on trees. That's just not something that happens. And then I got given glasses, and I was like, oh wow.
What?
Okay, you're supposed to see things. Cool, great. Glad I know that now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Irresponsible parenting.
They don't know what he's seeing.
They can't just view the world through my eyes. I'm not going to tell them, hey guys, I think I can't see good.
Can you check this for me?
How old were you?
7 or 8.
Could you read by then?
I could read very well. In fact, I used to read street signs, but only when they were close up.
And no one noticed that you were like going really close to everything and pressing your face against
Oh,
it.
my dad
What does this
noticed.
say?
No, my dad noticed that when they asked me to read the time. So this was back when you had like VHS players.
Yeah.
And they had a little clock on them, like the little clock. So he would ask me to tell the time from the clock, and I'd have to go right up next to it with my nose.
And at no point did he think something's
That's what
wrong with
takes
our
me
son.
behind
That's
his
what tipped
glasses.
him off, Luke.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like that. If you constantly can't see very well, you don't know that everyone else can see better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can't just nod because like people are
It is
listening.
an order. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so we're talking about Schlatter. So so he realized that he was different from everyone else, and then he started doing some studies. So he had a 2015 study with 121 control subjects, and most of them were pretty good at visualizing, but they were outliers on both ends. So that was what I was talking about earlier with people that could.
Super seers.
Yeah. So
Super visualizers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Super visualizers. Super seers. They can just see.
That's like
everything.
Professor Trelawney. No, she's not actually very good.
No, she's very good. No, she's an
She
actual
was
seer.
good twice. She was rubbish all the time and good twice.
No, but no. If you read the book, okay, this is not a Harry Potter podcast.
I'm trying to
promise
make it
it's
a
not.
Harry
I
Potter
think we should
podcast.
just rebrand.
Okay, that's it. We tricked you. We got you in on science, and now it's Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Just to finish that, Trelawney actually made a lot of.
No, I know.
yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Okay,
She makes lots of like things that look like rubbish predictions and they actually come true. It's very interesting.
it's incredible. Read the books; they're great. So
Or listen to them read by Stephen Fry every night before bed.
So there are both ends of the scale. And as part of this, what he did was this really cool study where he only showed people things out of one eye. So effectively what they did was they split someone's vision and put a divider between both of their eyes and showed them one pattern with their left eye and a different pattern for their right eye. Now, what your brain does when this happens is it doesn't merge the images. Usually it'll take one eye and it'll be like, okay, you're actually looking at this pattern. So let's say one is stripes and one is dots. If you're looking at dots out of your right eye and your right eye is stronger, you'll just be seeing dots. But what people who can visualize stuff can do is if you say, okay, visualize the striped pattern, and then you show it to them, they're more likely to see the striped pattern because they've already got it in their head. They're visualizing it already. Whereas people with aphantasia doesn't really affect them at all because they can't visualize. So it has asking them to visualize something has no effect on which pattern they see. So they used that to basically study how aphantasia works. And they basically proved that it is actually a thing that affects people because they just can't visualize stuff.
Is there any reason why?
So we don't actually know why, because despite the fact that we are all brains, we are very bad at knowing what brains do. Like, the brains can do a lot of stuff except for figure out how they work.
They can think about being brains, but
Yeah,
no.
It's very frustrating that brains are trying to figure out what brains do and they just don't know.
They just don't know.
They just don't
Can't crack
know.
it.
They can't. Like, you're doing this, man. You should be able to. It's like, well, if Usain Bolt is running and you try to ask him to describe how to run, he's like, I have no idea what I'm doing,
He'd
man.
fall over, I think. He probably has to not think about
Suddenly
it.
forgotten.
If he started thinking about running too much.
Running? What is that? I've never heard of it in my life. Yeah, so this is basically a binocular rivalry, which sounds a lot more exciting than it is. It just
That
means,
sounds really exciting.
It does sound really exciting. No, it just means that one of your eyes decides what you're seeing instead of the other eye. But yeah, so people with aphantasia aren't affected by visualizing things like that. So, as I said, this wasn't really very well studied up until about 2010 and onwards after those kind of studies. So, following that, they did a lot more, and it was in 2015, actually, was when the word aphantasia was basically coined to describe this. It comes from the Greek, phantasia being imagination, and a being a prefix that means not or no. So, no imagination.
So you're a Corrie.
That's very funny, Luke.
Thank you.
Because my username is not Corrie.
Corrie.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well done.
I'm proud.
So effectively, if you've got very poor mental imagery, you can actually train yourself to get a little bit better if you really try at it. And some people have actually taken psychedelics to do this. And they say that when they're using them, they can close their eyes and see a lot of vivid imagery, which is really interesting.
I'm sure they can.
Well,
They're driven.
yes, but the point is that if you can't see it already, what about a psychedelic flips that switch in your brain?
I don't know. Please tell me.
We don't know.
Oh,
We
okay.
don't know.
Yeah, not just we don't know. We, all of us, don't know. So we're not really sure why this happened.
Do you know?
Why don't we know? Do you know?
Ooh.
Get the mic.
So funnily
Do you want
enough,
to come up here and replace me?
so funnily enough, at uni at the moment, I'm doing a project about memory formation.
Oh, come on.
This is too perfect.
This is not fair. Yeah, go on.
So basically, there's obviously there's nerves in your brain called neurons, and basically memories are formed by the same pattern firing over and over again. So what's probably happening with aphantasia is it's just that pattern isn't forming, and you're not getting that sort of thing because aphantasia is based upon stuff you've already seen. So if you're visualizing it, you have to have already seen it. Like when I was visualizing a thing, I saw a football because I sort of was talking about football yesterday and Arsenal playing and stuff. So it's that pattern of neurons aren't going to be firing enough, and memories are formed by patterns forming consistently and happening consistently. So it's that kind of thing. They just won't be happening enough. It might be like a sort of nerves in your brain, like with the guy with the stroke, it's probably the part of his brain that carried those memories and carried those neural pathways just stopped working when he had a stroke.
Absolutely. That is actually...
And I would guess then where psychedelics come in with that is that I've seen those MRI scans where when you have a drug like that, every part of your brain is talking to every other part of your brain, regardless of how your brain is normally wired.
It's a whole party, and your entire brain is invited.
Our uni actually has a psychedelic research society.
Whoa.
No.
So
I feel like that's a front for something else. Someone should look into that. I don't know.
Psychedelic Research Society.
Yeah.
We've only got a few minutes left, and that is aphantasia. Just a quick little insight into it.
Yeah, insight.
Yeah, that's... Woo, come on.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so... Now, oh my God, I've only got 3. Okay, so it's basically the end of the show, but this is a segment that we've just started and I quite like.
Oh.
It's time for the quick fire quiz round.
Dun, 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 dun.
So effectively, at this point, what I do is I ask my friends, James and Luke, I got that one right, James and Luke, questions about what I've just spoken about. And they can't answer them as well as you'd think.
No.
So try and answer these yourselves. Please don't shout out because you don't want to tip it off. But let's see if you can beat James and Luke in this one. Okay, so question number 1 is for you, Luke. What year did Francis Galton first perform the breakfast table experiment? You can give it to me in BL or in the other one.
114 BL?
Ding, ding, ding! You got that right! Well done!
No.
Okay, Jap, this one is for you.
This is where I lose by a lot.
I know every date in BL.
Without even being told. You just know it.
Hang on,
just
how
know
do
it.
I know BL dates? They are from before I existed. That's strange.
Okay.
Anyway, carry on.
Question is for you, Jap.
Okay.
Now, what was the code name for the man who lost his mind's eye and kicked off the modern study of aphantasia?
MX.
Ding, ding, ding!
I
You
knew
got it
that.
right. Well done. It's actually nice having an applause here that isn't just us.
Yeah.
We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Usually.
Okay, Luke, this one is for you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. What is the opposite end of the scale to aphantasia?
Hypervisualization? Hypervisualizers?
I'm
Can I
sorry,
go in
Luke.
for the steal?
Yeah, do you know what? Because I've only written 3 questions. Jap, if you go in for the steal, then you can win this.
Is it hyperphantasia?
Ding, 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 you got it
Yeah.
right. That means that Jap is our winner for this week. Let's give him a round of applause. And give yourselves a round of applause. Let's keep on clapping. Thank you for listening. You can find the full references for this episode in the description. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, and why not leave us a nice wee review? You can find and contact us at SciGuysPod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or send us an email at sciguyspod@gmail.com. And I'm not Corey everywhere.
I'm Jamkin everywhere.
I'm Luke Cupforth everywhere.
Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.
Lovely.